Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's school board meeting. It is September 22nd of 2020, approximately 5:35 p.m. As is traditional and customary, we always begin our meetings with an invocation. Mr. Tim Weissayer will lead us in that. Mr. Ricky Booth will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Sure, why not? Actually, how about Mr. Yassine?
No.
Can I turn it over?
I want to go by what it says.
Okay, all right, never mind. I tried to give you some duties. Appreciate it.
It says Kelvin, always stick to
Whatever you say, Mr. Chairman.
Stick to the paper, Kelvin. A mission statement by Dr. Pace, our translation services by Dr. Reyes, and then we'll do the rest of the board agenda. So please, I invite you to stand up, put your phones on silence. Mr. Whiteside, you have to.
If you'll join me as I pray. God, we come before you this evening, always grateful that we have the honor to come before you to bring our cares, our concerns, and our requests before you. That we are offered an opportunity by you to ask for your wisdom and discernment in all times and in all areas of life. And that is what we do this evening as your board to serve this community. We ask for wisdom and discernment as we consider the items before us, as we consider the impact our decisions have on our community, and as we consider the trust that's been placed in us by all of our taxpayers and our parents and our community at large. We, as always, we thank you for our students and their ability to be resilient in challenging times. We pray for their health, their wellness, their safety, and their education, that they would stay committed and focused during these times. We thank you for our staff that is dedicated to ensuring that students are learning and growing each day in each way, regardless of the setting or regardless of the circumstance. And we thank you for the dedicated people across this district and all the departments that choose to work hard every day to serve this very important institution and what it means to our community. God, we pray tonight for your wisdom, your discernment, and that what we would do would bring honor and glory to you. It's in Christ's name that I pray. Amen.
All right, please join me. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the mission statement for the school district of Osceola County is inspiring all learners to reach their highest potential as responsible, productive citizens.
Thank you, Dr. Pace. Good evening, Dr. Reyes.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kelvin Reyes, and I'm here to provide translation services. De aquí para proveer servicios de traducción.
All right, folks, it's also customary to hear, I like to say opening comments or starting comments from board members and the superintendent. If there's nobody to my left, I would be first. Thank you all for joining us this evening, and I hope that we have a very good meeting.
Sure, I'm good.
I'll just say that this is I've only got this meeting and two more left, so I decided to get some things done here in the last couple months.
Yeah. Dr. Pace.
Chairman So, members of the board and the community, it's been exciting these last 2 weeks to be able to get out into schools and see the amazing work that our teachers and students and staff members are doing. I've had the opportunity to observe face-to-face lessons, digital lessons, and simultaneous lessons, and I continue to be amazed by the creativity and the ingenuity and the dedication of our staff and the students they're serving. So it's really exciting to see.
Thank you, Dr. Pace and Mr. Weissayer.
Thank you. Yeah, I would have been remiss. I want to recognize board member-elect John Arguello. Congratulations on your election. And, look forward to your leadership and service at the school board. Appreciate you being here tonight and stepping up to lead, not even before you've even been sworn in, but showing and modeling leadership early on. So congratulations, Steve.
Congratulations, Mr. Thank you.
Oh, what the heck, I have a small comment. I'll share with you all. I did an interview with the press about, you know, the ongoing process that we have with COVID and our sports. And one of the questions that I was asked was, you know, just any message that I could send to the parents of the community in terms of, you know, what we're doing together to address this and making our schools safe and having an effective learning environment. That's a very difficult, you know, challenge to put those things together with this novel coronavirus. But I've had communications with with Dr. Pace and that's not even necessary because this district has been putting out public information about everything that's going on, about the changes, about when there's testing done in several schools. I don't know if it's even matched by any other district in the county. But there's one thing that I was very focused on letting the people know in that interview is that our students are doing exceptionally well. We're not getting all of these scenarios where there's kids who say, oh, the heck with the mask, I don't wanna follow. Especially our young students, they are keeping distance, they don't need to be told twice. Really, they could be an example, if they could be an example for the rest of the county, we are gonna do well. So, that's it.
Mr. Chairman, I think we do have one board member by phone.
Oh,
Ms.
is
Castillo
it
is
would you
on
be able to make a comment? Ms. Castillo, sorry about that, I didn't know that we'd be able to. The floor is yours, ma'am.
Can you hear me, guys?
Yes, ma'am.
Great. No, thank you so much, Mr. Chair, for your comments and for recognizing me. I just wanted to say, first of all, congratulations to Mr. Arguello as well. I'm glad that he's, doing his onboarding and being there. I'm happy to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month. I know that later in the agenda, we're going to recognize Hispanic Heritage Month, and I'm just so proud to be working in a district that is so inclusive. I didn't know that I was the first female to be elected to the school board, so that really makes me proud to represent the Hispanic culture. But just in essence, I'm excited to be here and to share this moment with the rest of the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Castillo. And Mr. Thacker, are you able to hear us? No?
He's coming, he's on his way.
Okay. Good, I don't wanna make the mistake of not recognizing a board for comment. And so we will continue forward with the rest of our agenda. Next item is the proclamation that Ms. Castillo just alluded to, which is a proclamation of the Hispanic Heritage Month. And yes, Dr. Reyes.
Could I get ahead of myself? I apologize. Well, good evening, Dr. Pace, Chairman Soto, and board members. Typically, we showcase pictures submitted by students depicting the contributions of Hispanics in all areas of Osceola County. However, we thought it prudent to do something a little different during this unprecedented year. Starting with the end in mind, we will culminate Hispanic Heritage Month with an ELL family drive-in celebration at Flora Ridge Elementary from 7 to 8:30 p.m. And families probably want to start driving in at 6:30 as the first 100 cars will have pizza and drinks. Visa gift cards will be awarded for Kahoot games throughout the night, so we invite the community there. We will recognize Hispanic countries as well as share supports for students, parents, and families. And an appearance by Lieutenant Colonel retired Consuelo Kickbush to recognize the first Osceola Family Leadership Institute graduate class. It is a drive-in, so we will present on a 30-foot screen, and families can tune in from their vehicles to ensure safe distancing. We encourage participation in First Lady DeSantis' Hispanic Heritage Contest, and for more information, you could be directed to our district website or also to the Florida State District website. Additionally, tonight and throughout Hispanic Heritage Month, we recognize Hispanic leadership within our school district. 6 representatives were chosen for contributions in the past, present, and passing the torch to the future. In the history of SCOC, 2 Hispanics have risen to serve on the superintendent's cabinet. The first is Ms. Melba Luciano, who was not only the first Hispanic to serve on superintendent's cabinet, but who broke the glass ceiling, as they say, to become the first and only Hispanic superintendent to date, and the first female superintendent in the school district of Osceola County. The second Hispanic leader to serve is Dr. Lisette Brizendine, who served as assistant superintendent and who led the inception of dual language in Osceola. Dr. Brizendine rose through the ranks in Osceola County and served as assistant superintendent. Presently, Hispanic leadership is found in the school board. The Honorable Kelvin Soto is not only the school board chairman, but also the longest serving elected Hispanic board member, having served as such for 8 years. And sir, we thank you for your service as a role model for 63% of our students here in Osceola County, but as a champion for all, and we appreciate you. The Honorable Teresa Terry Castillo is our newest addition and a significant progress of the times. As she shared previously, she is the first female Hispanic elected board member. And we look forward to everything that she will continue to do for our district. RBG would be proud. Of course, we learn from the past as we lead into the future. We recognize Don Alfonso Nathan Ramos, who has been the District ELL Parent Leadership Council Chairman for the past 20 years and has spent the last year training the new chairman, Mr. Ahmed El Ghameni. And last but not least, and actually especially best, we recognize and honor our teacher, Mrs. Jeanette Suarez. Mrs. Suarez pioneered the dual language program in Osceola County, and her last 20 years of teaching, she spent teaching dual language at Kissimmee Elementary School. Representing dual language teachers carrying on that torch are Ms. Nancy Rivera and Ms. Jessica Holmes, who are excellent dual language teachers at East Lake Elementary. Both not only earned a dual language certificate from the University of Central Florida, but were also recognized for their outstanding contributions in a presentation they co-presented with UCF on the topic of connecting academic knowledge development with language proficiency in a dual language context. They are here supported by their principal, Mr. Hennessy, as well as their assistant principal, Mrs. Noble. Without further ado, I introduce to you Ms. Jessica Holmes, who will read the Hispanic Heritage Month proclamation in English first. But wait, there's more.
Dr. Regis, welcome.
Hi, I'm very nervous, just so you guys know. I just want to preface with that.
With the mask
Yeah.
on,
I talk in front of children, not adults, so this is a little new. Good evening.
Like a child.
Good evening. My name is Ms. Holmes, and I'm here to present the National Hispanic Heritage Month proclamation from September 15th until October 15th of 2020. Whereas the Hispanic community has a long and important history of commitment to our nation's core values, and whereas the numerous contributions of Hispanic Americans have helped shape our community and positively impacted our nation, and whereas we applaud the accomplishments of Hispanic Americans, and now, therefore, the School Board of Osceola County, Florida proclaims the month of September 15th through October 15th, 2020 as National Hispanic Heritage Month and encourages all citizens to recognize the important role of Hispanics in creating and building this great nation.
I'm gonna read it in Spanish.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
And this is Ms. Nancy Rivera.
Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes, es un honor para mí estar aquí para presentar la proclamación del Mes Nacional de la Herencia Hispana, considerando que la comunidad hispana tiene un largo e importante historial de compromiso con los valores fundamentales de nuestra nación y considerando que las numerosas contribuciones de los hispanoamericanos han ayudado a moldear nuestra comunidad e impactado positivamente nuestra nación. Y considerando que nosotros aplaudimos los logros de los hispanoamericanos y ahora, por lo tanto, la Junta Escolar del Condado de Osceola, Florida, proclama desde el 15 de septiembre al 15 de octubre del 2020 como el Mes Nacional de la Herencia Hispana. y exhorta a todos los ciudadanos a reconocer la función importante de los hispanos de crear y desarrollar esta gran nación.
Motion para aprobar.
Moción para aprobar del señor Booth. Segundo por el señor Whitesire. Comentarios por parte de la Junta.
Oh,
You
what?
go first then.
Oh, I thought you were calling for a vote.
No.
Okay, sorry.
Comments before that.
So I only got that's the only Spanish I knew tonight.
Oh, well, do this in English. So here's what I would say. So, we're recognizing the Hispanic heritage and the contributions from our culture, Hispanic culture, of which I enjoy, I'm a part of. But we're a very diverse community from so many different cultures here in Osceola County. And that is one of the things that I have enjoyed from the first day that I decided to come and put my law practice here years ago. And it's one of the things that encouraged me to become involved with the school district when I ran back in 2012, is to be a part of that because there's just so much joy in interacting and learning from people that have different experiences, different religions, just a different way of looking at the world, but it's very rich. And those interactions, our students are having them in our classroom. Look, not so much now, right? But they do. And so we celebrate the diversity because it's a beautiful thing. And I've always shared that with my board members. And I'll bring you even, before this COVID, I was always speaking with Mr. Booth about, doing the dominoes things and bringing parents together to share culture because that's very important in the Latino culture. We have that among so many other things. But those are just the little things that we could do in our schools to help educate kids and encourage that interaction. And so, yes, I am very proud. Thank you so much, Dr. Regis, for that recognition. It does scare me a little bit to think that I'm a role model, but
Us too.
yeah, it is. But I try to do my best, and so thank you for that. And that's it. I mean, we're very diverse, and I look forward to the next Heritage Month that we're going to celebrate, and of course, continuing this tradition that we have of being a diverse community. So that's all for my comments. Anyone else? No. All right. Okay. So we'll take a vote.
Gracias.
Ms. Castillo. Comments?
Yeah,
Oh, do you want to make comments before I take the vote?
no comments, I've already stated how excited I am to, be celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month and just very proud to have grown up in this very diverse, county. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, with that, then we'll take the vote. Board, all those in favor of approving this proclamation, please state aye.
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 All right, so that registered 5-0. Vote passes. Thank you, Dr. Reyes. Thank you, Mr. Booth, for being there. With your Spanish. You're getting it.
I was very proud.
Working on that.
It's a work in progress.
So next on the agenda
I don't know
is,
what John's talking about.
next on the agenda is gonna be what we always do in our school board meetings is that we allow for an opportunity for the public to bring us comments to this board meeting and address the board directly. That is done by filling out this little yellow form, and in no particular order I'll call. Please, as you approach the podium, do speak your name and address into the recorded record, and you'll have 3 minutes to make your comment. So I'll begin here with Ms. Lori Strecker. I hope I said that correctly.
Sir, she is not here with us tonight. Instead, she submitted the written document that all 5 of the board members.
Okay, so I will go ahead at the other 2, I'll pause to give the board an opportunity to look at it. So our next one is Mr. Lair Allen. Good evening, Mr. Allen.
Good evening, sir. How are you?
Well,
Good evening, all. My name's Larry Allen. I'm from 618 Robin Lane in Kissimmee. And I just want to talk a little bit about the atmosphere that's in Osceola County right now in the school system. Parents trust teachers and ESPs with their greatest achievement, their child. You know, every day they turn them over to us, and they expect at the end of the day that we'll give them back at least in the same shape, if not better. There's a lot of pressure there, and I think I finally figured out part of the stress anyway that all our teachers and ESPs are going through, because we advocate for children. We want to make sure they're safe. We want to make sure that they become the best citizens, people that they can be. And sometimes we don't feel like that is possible. We can't keep them as safe as we think they should be. And there's a lot of stress involved in that. Imagine you're a parent, you've got two kids. One of them's like one of the little bitty kids, you know, and they're kind of sick. And through the grapevine, you hear that their teacher is positive. So about at the same time you start hearing this, your older kid, he's probably in 5th grade, he starts, you know, we don't know if it's allergies, we don't know if he's, you know, just got a runny nose, but you want to find out answers. So you call the school, try to find out what's going on. And for whatever reason, I'm not blaming the school because everybody's super busy now, but you're not getting the answers you think you need, right? So what do? You talk to the teacher. The teacher says, well, I'm not privy to that information, so please talk to my supervisor or call the district. In the meanwhile, right after that, the teacher's supervisor comes back and says, shh, you need to keep that under your hat. Now, I'm not saying that we're keeping things from the parents, but that's the perception of what's going on. And I understand that the CDC and the Department of Health has guidelines on how we're supposed to conduct ourselves, but I think Osceola County has to do better for the community. You have the 6 feet signs here. We don't have 6 feet in the classrooms. We don't. We have more like 3 feet. Some are even less. So we've just got to do a better job of reporting out. You did a good first step with the dashboard. We like that, but I think we can do even better, because the dashboard is like a snapshot. The first week looks like Toho has 22. Then you go to the next week, oh, that one went up, that's 99. But you go to the following week, it's 16. Within focus, if a student is quarantined, there's a I forget what the thing is, not absent or whatever, but you can show how many kids are quarantined on a specific day. And I just think we need to do a better job of keeping the parents informed about what's going on. And I think I'm gonna run out of time, so I better keep going.
No, finish your statement, Mr.
Well, there's another area, the simultaneous teaching. It sounds great, but again, imagine you have 15 students in front of you and you've got another 20 that are online. It is really hard to give the students the attention that they need to get. We want them to learn as much as they can, right? It is almost impossible to do that effectively. So I think we're shortchanging the students, and I think we're shortchanging the parents and the teachers, because they're stressed out trying to do what is best for the child. And lastly, I think people are still making that decision where I may have been exposed, I'm not sure, you know, I know somebody in my class was exposed, or this guy that I ride to work with, I feel fine, should I go get tested? So I think we put a lot of pressure on people to, should they get tested, shouldn't they? Am I going to be forced to use my own days to self-quarantine or not? And I think we could do a better job of taking some of the pressure off the people so they do make the right decision, which is to go get tested and find out if you're a spreader, if you're contributing to the problem or the solution. So thank you for your time. And I forgot to set my timer again. God bless.
Just curious, Dr. Pace, when a staff needs a test because of some they were near, like as part of contact tracing, that's covered by our benefit? That's not something that comes out of their pocket, correct?
Correct, there's no cost to the employee or the staff member or the child or the parent.
Okay.
For COVID testing at this point in time, no co-pays at all.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Pace. All right, so we have one last public comment, and that's Ms. Nancy Batista. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Nancy Batista. Osceola County is a heavily Latinx dense district. I stand here before you as a Latina, celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month and today National Voter Registration Day. I'm actually the state director for Poder Latinx. We registered over 33,000 voter registrations this year. As a Latina, I know culturally our communities are impacted at a greater rate for COVID-19. This is not by chance. This is by design. The food that we eat makes us prone to have blood illnesses such as diabetes, high cholesterol, and blood pressure. I am concerned. My uncle just died from COVID-19. He was trying to reopen the schools. He was the janitor that was trying to reopen the schools because of misinformation that the governor received from leadership. Donald Trump downplayed what this disease, this virus, could do to our community. And you're telling me that we're reopening schools and allowing kids and allowing teachers to be there. I just found out on Monday, not by the school board, not by the school, by my daughter sending me a text message saying, "Mommy, I just found out that one of my friends received a letter that my teacher or someone has COVID." We need to do better because I'm trusting the system. I'm trusting that I'm bringing my daughter, I'm bringing my kids to the school, and then I'm getting misinformation. I called the district, I called the school, and I'm getting information about them telling me, "Oh, we go by the chart. In alphabetical order, the first row is supposed to get quarantined." Mommy, I'm on the first row. I'm on the front row. Batista, front row, not quarantined. I call and let them know this. "Oh, we can quarantine your child. What about the rest of the children?" "We can't talk about the rest of the children." Well, I'm here today because I want this to be on public record. I want there to be the guidelines to be transparent. This information needs to be out there because we're trusting the system. As Mr. Lair mentioned, parents trust the school, parents trust the school board. I'm here to ask you, I'm here to advocate for the teachers. I've spoken to so many teachers that are afraid to speak up. There's 3 of them right now in celebration that came out positive. Are we seriously going to continue this? Do we want another death on our conscience? Do you know how it feels to have someone die, to reopen the schools? A teacher just died in Volusia County this week. My heart aches. I feel like this president, this governor stole years from my uncle's life. It didn't need to happen. Please, I'm begging you, reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Batista. Board, I believe that's all the, covered was all the, that's all the requests. And you do, board, you have the other comment.
Yes. Alright,
So, board, we have right now on the consent agenda is the next item. I'm looking to see if there's any modification.
Ms. Castillo needs to.
Sorry?
Ms. Castillo has one
Castillo has one.
modification.
Oh, yes. So yes, I'll be calling in you to see if there's any modifications. I'll begin with Mr. Thacker.
I have none.
Alright, Ms. Castillo, I believe that you have a modification you wanna put on the record?
I did want to speak about during my comments about, legislative initiatives. I don't think that has been added to the agenda, so, but I can do that during my comments or under new business, Mr. Chair.
So let me put that under new business, and how shall we title that?
Legislative platform
Legislative
request.
Legislative initiatives.
Initiatives.
Very well, so that'll be legislative initiative, and we'll get to that at that point of the agenda. I don't have any modifications, Mr. Weissier. None, and Mr. Booth.
I have none and I'll move for approval.
Dr. Pace,
I'm sorry.
Second.
Frank. Alright, so it looks like we're good to go. Motion to approve the consent agenda by Mr. Booth, second by Mr. Thacker. Any further comments or discussion? We'll take a
With the
vote.
addition of the new business item.
Correct.
Yes. With the addition of the new business item, legislative initiatives. So we'll take a vote. All those in favor, please state aye.
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 Register 5. Vote passes 5-0. Consent agenda is therefore adopted. And that brings us to information agenda items. Superintendent, are we gonna have a presentation on those?
We are, sir. We have our team here from RSM,
Very
who
well.
does our internal audits, and they're going to report on the half-cent sales surtax internal audit report. And then they're also available if you have any questions or any board member has questions about the other information that's been included as an information item here at the.
Very well. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me here today. I believe that this is connected to the slide deck, so I'll go ahead and move forward. Yes, absolutely. So as you all recall, the school board has implemented an internal audit function here at Osceola County Schools. We are an independent firm. My name is Laura Manlove. I'm a director in our internal audit practice. I specifically focus on Florida's public sector with an emphasis on school districts, and we've been serving you all for the past year. We report directly to you. We are independent of the superintendent and the district, and we report through your audit advisory committee. This past year, we were directed to perform 3 projects as your internal audit function, the first of which was a very large audit of the half-penny sales surtax process. This was a priority of the boards and of the audit advisory committees and the superintendents due, of course, to the sensitive nature. It's a large dollar of taxpayer funds. The voters passed a referendum in 2016 to collect a half-penny tax to focus on facilities renewal and critical infrastructure replacement and refreshment here at the school district. Over the 20-year lifespan, this is a lot of dollars passing through the school district. So this is the first project that we chose to take a look at together with you all as your internal auditors. Just a quick refresher on the timeline. Of course, this was passed in 2016. Some collections started coming in 2017. This, of course, is a 20-year plan. You will be collecting a half-penny surtax for the next 20 years. It was very important to the board and to the superintendent that the program that is in place is a sound process with sound controls for handling these taxpayer funds that the taxpayers have chosen to provide the school district. The use of the funds, they can be limited to these 4 areas: capital expenditures, land acquisition, retrofitting of technology needs, and some other uses as allowed by the law. The objectives of our review, we looked at policies and procedures. We looked at the overall design of the process and how the school district is reporting to the Independent Business Advisory Board, which is jointly appointed, of course, by the county and by the school board. And overall, are we complying with state statute, with the referendum, and with the school board's own policies and procedures? You can see, of course, at the bottom right there, very proud to announce that there were 3 green checks, which means we had no material exceptions in those 3 categories of testing that RSM completed. It is not often that I get to issue such a clean report, so I just want to reiterate that this was an excellent result. The one comment that we do have
is in relation to some cleanup of language for the Business Advisory Board's bylaws. Of course, a reminder that the Business Advisory Board is a separate entity from the school board. Please, if you have questions, feel free to chime in at any time. Regulatory requirements. We tested several regulatory requirements related to the half-cent program. Of course, the statute, some school board policy, as well as the referendum requirements itself. Little bit of information for the public and for the school board related to collections, budgeted versus actual. Over the past few years, estimated collections have been exceeded. We've been collecting a little bit more than anticipated. Of course, this is pre-COVID. Since the pandemic has hit, there has been about a 10% dip in estimated collections on the half-penny surtax. These are the testing results. When we tested the revenue side, we looked at mathematical accuracy, proper period recognition, existence and occurrence, all green checks. Expenditures, we've categorized them here to date. This maps directly to the referendum. This is what the taxpayers asked you to spend the dollars on. We've mapped these out accordingly, and of course, our testing, we have all 4 green checks in the expenditures category as well. It's not easy to get green checks from me. So I want to reiterate that this is a great report. I'm very happy to present this as the first audit to you all, reporting back to you as your independent internal audit function. Certainly, if there's any questions, I'm happy to entertain those.
Very well. Mr. Booth?
No, I just say we made a commitment to the folks that approved this, and I know you say it'd be hard to get green checks from you, but I'd be very disappointed if it wasn't green checks. So thank you, Dr. Pace. Thank you, Sarah. You guys do amazing work. You know that. And school board, I think this is a quality report. Thank you very much.
Any other comments?
I was actually gonna say something similar, so to recognize Mr. Booth's comments and affirm them. Thank you.
And I actually serve as board's representative to the audit committee. So we had an audit committee meeting a couple weeks ago for a couple hours where we went through obviously a lot more detail than this. But I'm probably one of the ones who pushed this particular audit too, to make sure that we were in compliance really with what we said we would do. And this actually went a lot further than that we're doing it right. So, they did 3 different audits and very positive for all 3. So reiterate what Ricky said, Sarah and her team and the others. So very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mizaki.
Ms. Castillo?
I'm all set. I read the report during my preparation for this meeting, very thorough, and I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
As do I. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I believe on information, there was a request for an update on the other 2 projects as well, which were much smaller than this audit, but if the board wishes, I'm happy to provide an update as well.
I do wish. Anyone else? Please proceed.
Okay. The second project that we performed at the direction of the board and the audit advisory committee was related to IT security and privacy. We have a very specialized team who works with our public sector entities to do internal and external penetration testing and look at cybersecurity. Florida statute exempts those types of reports from sunshine, so it's not here for you to read today. But I'm here to report back to you as your internal auditor that we have completed that process. We have had a confidential meeting with the superintendent and the CIO to review any results and discuss next actions.
Yes, Dr. Bailey.
And board chair, we have spoken with Laura and the rest of the RSM team about scheduling an executive session once we have our new board members in place specifically to go over this audit in detail in executive session because of its sensitive nature.
Very well. I'll be contacting you directly then to receive the report.
Okay, sounds great. The third project we completed was very small. We did some follow-up on an audit that we had conducted a couple of years ago related to timekeeping, the process within the transportation department. We followed up on that. This ties in with the district's overall strategic plan and their initiative to implement an automated timekeeping system district-wide. The policies and procedures and processes that could be enhanced in the meantime before this is fully implemented. Most of those were enhanced and we were able to close some of our audit issues. The ones that remain open are really tied with this automated timekeeping system. We'll continue to monitor the district's progress in their strategic plan, and at the appropriate time, we will perform follow-up testing again to see how the new process is working. Thank you all for your time today. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Yes. Yes.
I just, now that you've done everything, I'll say this. Number one, everything that you just shared is a great example of the commitment of this board and leadership team to be a transparent, intentional, and accountable to the work that we're doing and the way that we're leading. And then number two is I want you to hear, and I believe I speak for the entire board when I say this, how much we appreciate you and the work of your firm in coming alongside of us to ensure that we are hitting all the areas, as Mr. Booth said, that we would expect to hit, and that if at any time there's a concern that arises, I know under your fiduciary you would anyway, but this board wants to know how we can continue to get better, how we can continue to improve, and where we can celebrate the successes that we've already achieved. So thank you.
Absolutely, thank you.
Well said, Mr. Weissier. Thank you very much. Board, you
Move for approval.
Yes. One more. So, board, you do have the monthly business advisory board is in the packet for your review. And that brings us to our regular, and I believe Mr.
Actually, I missed one thing. No, that's on
That was on 14. That's the confidential report Mr. Soto was talking about, correct? Or is that different?
I believe that the item, all right, we do have 14.01, which is the approval of the 2020-2021 Florida State School Assessment Report. Marked confidential, but it's in the packet for the board to review. Do I have a motion to approve from any board member?
Second.
There's a board, okay, so Mr. Thacker made a motion to approve, a second by Mr. Booth, and I'll call for any comments or questions. Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, 14.01, please state aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ms. Castillo?
Team, I don't know what happened the last minute. Were we just approving the regular agenda item? Or was
Yes.
something removed or changed?
Okay, so allow me. Ms. Castillo, we called for a vote on item 14.01. Florida State School, yes, and there's a motion to approve by Mr. Thacker and a second by Mr. Booth. There's no discussion and we're calling for the vote. What is your vote?
Okay. Alright, so I would be voting in approval of that. I'm sorry, if you guys can just, I apologize if this is
No,
really,
you're
I
fine.
know it's
You're
not
fine,
a
Ms.
big deal, but I just wanna make sure that I'm voting on the right stuff.
Ms. Castillo, you're fine. Anytime that you need me to go over something or repeat it, just let me know. I'll oblige immediately. So that counts 5. I think I registered a 5-0 vote. Yep, Ms. Culver.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve item 15.04.
And waiting for a second. Right, so item 15.04, a motion that's to approve 15.01, 02, and 03. It's a motion to approve by Mr. Booth and a second by Mr. Weissier. Is there any discussion before we move on to a vote? All right. Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor, 15.04, please state aye.
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 Vote passes 5-0. Brings us to facilities.
I move to approve item 16.03.
Second.
Very well, there's a motion to approve item 16.03 by Mr. Thacker, second by Ms. Castillo. Before we take a vote, does anyone have any comments? Yes, Mr. Weissier.
I have a comment just on 16.02. It's just a further recognition of this board's commitment to continuing to bolster the work that we're doing in the area of virtual education and the investment we're making to increase the capacity of that particular department. I applaud this as an item come before, and I know it just further displays the commitment of this board and district in fulfilling this opportunity to expand the educational choice offerings provided to our community.
Okay, well said, Mr. Weissier. Any other comments before we take a vote? Hearing none, I call for the vote. All those in favor, please state aye. Aye.
Aye.
I register 5, the vote passes 5-0. And I believe that takes care of the voting items that well, not quite. Mr. Krupabacher,
Yes.
17.01 and 02.
Yes, members of the board, when I arrived tonight, I received a copy of a written 3-page document that was issued to you from Ms. Strecker. That item was on the agenda tonight. I would like to pull it to give me the opportunity to review and look into what she has raised. And if necessary, we'll come back at the next meeting. If that is all right with you, Mr. Chairman?
Absolutely. All right.
Thank you.
So that brings us to the 17.
Second, I have a number of items, sorry. The second item is, I'll just go in this order on this sheet. We have an employee named Chelsea Shell who oversaw our nursing program. We received a complaint that was filed from a former teacher. We received that from the Florida Department of Nursing, raising what would be significant allegations if true. Ms. Shell resigned prior to it being approved by you. She asked to withdraw that, which she has the right to do, asserting she thinks she may not have had due process. I can tell you as a lawyer, I think she had due process, but it's not worth arguing about. The recommendation from the superintendent is to relieve her of pay while we conduct this investigation. I can tell you, both the state is doing an investigation, we've learned. We're doing an investigation. Based upon my meeting with people involved in the program, I believe there is prima facie evidence to justify the relief of duty, right? The nature of the allegations include submitting reports to the state of Florida that were inaccurate, students saying what was provided wasn't provided, issues of accuracy of grading. I could go on and on and on. I think some will prove, I'm hoping all prove to be untrue. Dr. Pace asked that I personally conduct a due process matter in terms of meeting with Ms. Shell, et cetera, which I plan on doing. What I've been doing is putting together a long list of questions to ask for written responses to. Because a lot of these issues are technical, and you got to go look at the state reg and then look at this. I was contacted yesterday by the state investigator. We're cooperating with them. And so the request tonight is to place her on relief of duty. And as I would tell you, I think preliminarily, based upon the early scratching, there's grounds to place her without relief of duty. Should we come back and find out, we thoroughly investigated and she's exonerated, I would be the first to be recommending to you that she be reinstated with full back pay, right? I mean, I hate doing this, but I look at these very carefully. When Dr. Pace talks with me very carefully, there's a real debate about, do we relieve them, do we don't? But there's some things here which, for purpose of the investigation, I won't go into, but I do recommend that you support the superintendents. And I would need a motion on that, Mr. Chairman.
Well, before I call for a motion, does anyone have any questions?
17.01 is different than what Mr. Krupabacher is talking about.
Different, yes.
It was I had it on the screen and somehow they deleted it, so I'm going by.
Okay, so this will be
I'm
different.
sorry.
And I don't know what we're gonna call that, Ms. Tanya. I was just trying to help for Ms. Tanya over here. So for the
Oh God, I'm so sorry, Tanya.
I mean, I'll make a motion to approve that recommendation by Mr. Krupabacher.
Situation. So, Dr. Pace, what you're requesting is the board's approval on a request to suspend without pay employee Shell, what was it?
Chelsea Shell.
Sorry?
Chelsea Shell.
Chelsea Shell, okay. So that's what's before the board right now. Alright, so before we take any vote, does anybody have any questions or need any clarification from Dr. Pace or from Mr. Kupenbacher before we take action on that request? Ms. Castillo, you're fine? I just always wanna check because of the thing. Alright, so I don't have any inquiry. So I'm going to take it that there isn't any inquiry, so I'm gonna call a vote on
I made a motion.
to approve the superintendent's request to place on Chelsea Shell on suspension without pay, pending what Mr. Freckenbacher described. Motion to approve by
So moved.
Mr. Booth. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, there's a second by Mr. Thacker. I'm gonna call for a vote. All those in favor, please state aye. Aye.
Aye.
I registered 5. The vote passes 5-0.
Members of the board, we'll look to wrap this up quick so that the right thing's done. Members of the board, I'm sorry, but a lot of items developed. Yesterday, we had a significant session with lawyers representing Mattamy. If you recall, there were a number of legal concerns we had that the board raised and that we've talked with about. We worked those out. Obviously, the devils are in the written details. But one of the things that I am asking for tonight is permission to release up to 59 lots for Mattamy to commence building. They would be entitled to their impact fee credits for those lots. I added the stipulation and said that I would recommend it subject to they could not pull certificates of occupancy unless we reached a final agreement for the overall project. And I see this as important to do if for no other reason should we end up not having an agreement and having a fight. It would mitigate damages. I don't think we created damages, but if somebody asserted it, it mitigates it. So I think with our leverage of being able to hold back the certificate of occupancy, the district is protected. We're taking a step that puts us in a position to reduce our risk, and it gives us the time to finalize the written document to be able to come back to you all with that agreement. And I would need permission of the board to do that.
Mr. Gruberbacher, help me formulate this into a request that we could take a vote on.
It would be a motion to approve the authorization for Mattamy to be able to pull building permits and replat for 59 homes or residences, lots, and they automatically would be entitled to the appropriate ordinance regulated impact fee for each, with the condition that no certificate of occupancy can be issued until this board and Mattamy reach a final overall settlement of the issues regarding the Celebration Isle School.
That sounds like, you got all that? That's cool.
No, sir.
Okay, so.
Anya, I'll get with you to make sure we get everything
We'll
right.
formulate it, it will be formulated for the record. So before I call for a motion on that, for a motion to approve on that request, I'm gonna call for discussion, and Mr. Thacker, you have something.
Mr. Gruberbacher,
Yes.
can you explain, I'm not sure I'm following what we're doing here. We don't generally approve construction to start or anything like that. Why are we approving?
Well, we have put a hold, if you went through the context of the agreement with Mattamy that was issued, they've got to do certain things for us to be able to move forward. We have said we're not moving forward on anything till we get an agreement. Yesterday, I can tell you, other than you know, the devil and us, the lawyers, all agreeing that the words say everything we feel comfortable presenting. They asked if they could please go forward and not lose time, because for them, time is obviously money. We agreed because let's assume the board votes no and there's no agreement. It takes damages out of the issue as it relates to those lots, et cetera. So it's trying to work with them, and I didn't feel comfortable as the lawyer reading everything, authorizing the staff to move in that direction without the board saying you're authorized to do that. I'm trying to resolve issues as we're moving along. I hope I answered that right for you, Mr. Thacker.
I sort of understand it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
You normally would never vote on this, but it's unique to the fact that you all inherited an agreement that we are now trying to clarify and make work for everyone.
Oh, yes, Mr. Weissler.
And the precursor to this, Mr. Kruppenbacher, based on our exchange, is that since our last conversation, you've worked out a number of elements
Significant
that
elements.
were of concern to the board, and in your judgment, this is a step in the right direction to affirm the movement that's taking place with our agreement and keep this progress moving in a direction that will hopefully get us to where we need and we desire to be.
Yes, sir. That's a great way of putting it, and I will tell you that I fully anticipate that the superintendent, Mr. Callen, and myself will be recommending to you in October approval of final element, given how successful yesterday's meeting went.
Dr. Pace,
Nothing further, sir, unless there are other questions.
is this a recommendation that you share?
Yes, sir.
Very well.
So board, based on recommendation of counsel and the recommendation of the attorney with the overview provided and the outline of what the motion entails, I would move approval of the recommendation as presented by legal counsel.
So that's a
No,
motion.
I'm not seconding.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, so, okay, so I'll
second.
all right, so I'm gonna recognize the motion by Mr. Weissire and a second by Mr. Booth with further discussion from Mr. Thacker.
My question to you, right, is my wife used to represent this company a while back. I don't believe she is in this portion. Do I need to abstain from voting on?
Mr. Thacker, I would tell you this. You have been pristine in your being careful and to avoid even the appearance because of your wife's role originally, who, by the way, was very, very helpful working on this issue back when she was there.
She was still working on it.
That you do
I will be-
abstain and file a
I have a conflict on voting on this item, board, and I will be abstaining from voting on this due to the fact that my wife was involved in this a while back. I think I've abstained from other votes on this, and I will fill out the necessary form once Tanya hands it to me.
So that means you're taking your second, are you still seconding?
No, I was not seconding. I was trying to get his attention to ask that question.
Right, there's a motion to approve by Mr. Weissire, second by Mr. Booth. Comment from Mr. Thacker and a request to abstain, and an abstention on this vote due to conflict. That's where we're at right now. Before I call the vote, I'm just gonna pause for a moment. Ms. Castillo, are you following? I'm just testing the connection, not you.
No, this is not, I lost most of that conversation, so I'm gonna ask Mr. Kruppenbacher, I know this is not ideal, right? Is there any reason why we have to vote on this today, or, is there a way that the board can come to a consensus that you and I can have a private conversation about this, because I'm still fairly confused on the motion. I've lost everything that Mr. Weissire has said, so I don't know what that part of the discussion is, and I don't feel comfortable just asking you to move forward without really understanding what I would be voting forward for.
Ms. Castillo, I'm interpreting that as a request to table this. That's the only way that we can really accommodate what I believe is what your intent is.
May I address that, Mr.
Is
Chairman?
that possible, or if I can ask Mr. Kruppenbacher to speak into the mic just a little clearer so that I am absolutely certain of what it is he's asking me to do?
Ms. Castillo, I'm gonna ask Mr. Kupenbacher to repeat his comments, and I believe that there was also some relevant commentary made by Mr. Weissayer. Did you hear that comment?
No.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask if you could both just try to summarize what you said before, and I asked Mr. Weissayer.
Ms. Castillo, can you hear me okay?
Because I think yours made it.
Better,
Not
yeah.
right.
As you're aware, we are trying to work out a very complicated agreement involving the ability to build the Celebration Isle School.
Yeah.
We had a very good meeting yesterday in which we addressed the district's concerns with the lawyers. And as the lawyers, we felt that we had resolved the issues and it would require us to have the time to put the pen to paper and get it down exactly the way we want it, in a position to present to the board, et cetera. We, assuming there was no agreement, the district, they have asserted we could be exposed for multi-million dollars in damages. We as lawyers don't agree with that. They asked if, and they wanted to go ahead and be able to replat and pull 59 permits to be able to build homes. Tom Callan and I agreed to recommend it, subject to they can do that, but they can't pull any certificate of occupancy unless the board and Mattamy reach a settlement agreement for the overall school. And so we're recommending it tonight because I am, as a lawyer, telling you it keeps us in control and it mitigates any claim as it relates to damages for that, what they're ready to do right now.
And Mr. Weissayer, you had a comment as well. Ms. Castillo, hold on. Mr. Weissayer had a comment as well. Please proceed.
Ms. Castillo, my comment was simply that based on recommendation of counsel and the fact that he was able to overcome and mitigate some of the concerns that the board had previously raised related to this issue, that I had comfort in moving forward with approval of the recommendation from our general counsel, and recognizing also that there is still the proviso regarding the certificate of occupancy, which means possession and occupancy, if you will, of those homes would not be able to be realized until the board is fully satisfied with the nuances of what we've been working through contractually.
Thank you, Mr. Weissayer. And Ms. Castillo, finally, I did inquire from Dr. Pace where she stood on this recommendation, and she stood in favor. She did make a statement of that. And Mr. Thacker did provide the record that he would have to abstain from the vote. And that's where we're at. There's a motion to approve by Mr. Weissayer and a second by Mr. Thacker, and is waiting for. Sorry?
Okay.
Mr. Booth.
Thank you for indulging me in that conversation. It's really important for me to understand what's happening. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I'm going to call this for a vote. I know that would you, can we, so I'm going to call this for a vote. If there's anything else that you want to add before I do so?
No.
Very well. Board, then we've been appraised on this issue, and we had opportunities to discuss and question, and we have the recommendation from the board attorney joined in by the superintendent. So on this matter, how do you all vote? All those in favor, please state aye.
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 I register 4 votes with 1 abstention.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I only have 3 more things. So I am really happy to report to you. This past year, in 2019, the Office of Civil Rights for the United States Department of Education commenced an investigation into our website and its accessibility to those with disabilities in Atlanta, Georgia. On September 18th, they issued a letter to the superintendent, copied to me, concluding that they have reached a determination using a preponderance of the evidence. OCR's investigation revealed insufficient evidence to support a conclusion there was a violation of the law, that we were in compliance. I bring it up to you because, you know, I've done a lot of this a long time and seen administrations that just stonewall and fight, et cetera. The investigator from Atlanta, we engaged collaboratively with. He gave us some suggestions, et cetera, on what we could do better. That led to the superintendent deciding to switch the website company that you all approved. And we were able to assure the district was literally right out in front of this and things were resolved. And they're looking at entities all over on their websites, government entities, and we were, you know, one of the ones they looked at. But I think it's a credit to Dr. Pace, to Dana, to Giselle Lee. It was always great to work with the investigators and the whole team. But, you know, in this kind of times that are turbulent, it was really nice to get something positive about everything. So I wanted you all to know that, and I'll ask Tanya to, she can put the letters in your box so you can actually see it. Two other items. OXA. You all have received emails regarding OXA. I want to give you a status update, what we're doing. The first thing I did when I was assigned this was to, one, meet with John Boyd and identify, did we have procedures in place for both students and employees to report the matters that were being raised? The answer to that was yes, and I saw them. I then met with the principal of OXA to say, did we have any issues of this nature being raised at the school? He advised absolutely not, etc. Remember, the issues we heard about were old issues. I then advised Dr. Pace that I, based upon my experience, thought there were things we could do better than we're even doing now, based upon my experience in litigating and defending a lot of these issues. Work closely with Ms. Castillo, and our next step is we are going to be meeting with the principal, who I have asked to gather half a dozen students to review with them what we're currently doing, what I would be recommending to the superintendent and the board, and with Ms. Castillo, and getting their view on, is there anything from their level as a student that we could do better, that they think in our procedures, so that when we come back to you by the end of October, we're bringing you, in my opinion, the benefit of our staff, our board, legal, et cetera, with, we've taken this seriously, and we think we don't need to do anything, or here are recommendations to tweak a policy or do this separately. Okay, so I think that one of the things I've talked with Dr. Pace about is in an age when there is so much going on, part of the problem is you got to communicate this stuff to people, and it gets lost in everything about their abilities, what they can report, what they should understand. So Ms. Castillo has been very helpful, and I wanted to give you that update. I'll answer any questions you may have.
Chair, I don't have a question, just a comment.
All right, very well. I'll begin with Mr. Weissier.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
All right, you'll be third. It'll be Weissier, Mr. Thacker, and then you. Please proceed.
Just for the benefit of Castillo. My comment is quick and simple. I know we've talked about this personally, and so you know my viewpoints on it. I applaud your efforts, and you understand where I stand on all of this, and I look forward to a positive report back that would be satisfying, not to me individually, but to the board collectively.
And thank you, Mr. Weissier, because your comments were helpful in my dealing with this.
Just a question I had on the students that you're gonna talk to.
Yes.
Are those current students, or are they some of the students who have sent the letters, or both?
Both. We're gonna make sure that we really get and bring back to
I
you what
think
we
it'd be
can.
helpful to talk to some
Yes.
of the people.
Yes.
Ms. Castillo?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to recognize, Mr. Kopsmacher and Dr. Page, your work on this. I know that, it has been, it's been there's been an ongoing conversation, and I appreciate, you looping me in, but especially looping in students who would be able to actually have a voice and an opinion with regards to how we move forward. So I really appreciate your diligence on this, and I appreciate the inclusion of our students in this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Castillo.
The final item, just to give you an interim report, if you recall, a gentleman came to report issues he felt occurred with that HVAC bid. I was asked to investigate it. I met with both facilities and maintenance together and got all the issues on the table. I was asked by Dr. Pace if I wouldn't also have, there's two issues to this. The purchasing issue, and then the second, the substance of the system that was used. To have an expert give thoughts regarding the actual system, et cetera, and the manner which I've engaged. I will be talking and reaching out this week to talk with the gentleman who came, who Tanya was kind enough to get me the verbatim words, and to talk with him to follow up on some of the details of what he alleged, and then reporting back to you by the end of October that this is the result of what I found. Okay? And I don't have anything else to report. Thank you.
All right, so board, before we move on to the next one, anything left from Mr. Kuchenbacher? No? Then that brings us to the superintendent's update.
Yes, Chairman Soto and members of the board, just wanted to give you an update on our health services plan implementation. As you know, our new plan year begins on October the 1st. Negotiations have been ongoing to ensure that we are ready and prepared for a smooth transition from Cigna to Aether and Integra for our pharmacy and medical TPA services. New ID cards have been sent out. I know I received mine yesterday. Has a lot of information on there for our employees to review, including where they would go to seek prior authorization for services if necessary, where they could go to get that one-on-one advisory services, the medical advisory program that's designed to be a part of this, so that should you need to schedule an X-ray or an MRI or whatever procedure, we can help guide you to a facility that is high quality and lower cost, for lower out-of-pocket, lower deductible cost, lower co-insurance for our employees, and as well as a better deal for our medical trust fund. That's super, super important as we move forward. You know that we have been in conversation with Advent Health. I will tell you that we had meetings even this afternoon with Advent Health. Those negotiations are ongoing. We're not quite where either party would like to be, but we remain committed to open open communication and transparency. So currently, Advent Health physicians and hospital services would be in the third tier, which we are prepared to help our clients, our employees and families manage if that's the choice that they made. But we are very, very close to reaching an agreement with both HCA, with Osceola Regional and the Louisiana Medical Center, as well as with Nemours, to move into the tier 1 tier area along with Orlando Health, our first tier 1 hospital provider. So super excited. We'll continue to keep you updated. We'll have some transparent communication going out to employees this week about helping to guide their choices as we make this transition, but just wanted to provide that update to the board.
Mr. Weissiger. We beat you by half a second.
Oh, that's fine, it doesn't matter.
Just to make sure I track with you, in addition to Orlando Health, Nemours and HCA are close to being able to transition to tier 1.
Correct.
Negotiations and discussions with Advent still has them in tier 3, but we're further pursuing those discussions with the intent of getting them to tier 1.
We're working toward that common goal. I don't know that we're going to get there, but we are continuing conversations. Latest conversation today has them remaining in tier 3.
Sure, and understand that when I ask that question, I don't ask it based upon our need to move. It's a two-way street, and I recognize that, so don't misunderstand my question. I think the bigger point for me is that if Orlando Health and the Moores and HCA can all figure out how to get in tier 1, I would hope that Advent Health can figure out how to get into tier 1.
We remain hopeful as well.
Mr. Chairman, Dr. Pace, if I could clarify one, it was a long meeting, but there's something you need to know about the tier 3. They are taking the position that if they don't end up resolving the issue in tier 1, then our employees will have to pay cash up front to be seen by the Advent Health employee doctors and the hospital, other than an emergency room visit, which they have to. Now, I can tell you, we've offered to pay them in tier 3, just like they're getting paid. So we would, as we best know it, be the only entity they've treated like that. All right, so I want you to know that, because if we don't reach an agreement and it goes into effect, you could hear an employee raise the issue. Now, we're putting things in place to be able to deal with that with the employees, but I want you to know the line is there in the sand. We asked them today to delay that while we negotiated. They said no, and so we'll keep you posted.
So I'm gonna follow up on this. This board has been very intentional about creating our process and our system of how we want access to quality, affordable healthcare provided to our large employee base in Osceola County. And we have set our process, our framework, our structure, and our expectations. And it's my expectation that anybody that wants to participate with this district understand that we wrapped our arms around this process starting a couple of years ago and began to create a different way of doing business that was in the best interest of our employees, the taxpayers, and the district as a whole. And so my expectations remain the same, that if anybody wants to partner with the Osceola County School Board, this is an opportunity to do it. We've laid out our framework.
Mr. Weishart, thank you. I can assure you, having been in on every meeting, Dr. Pace has very well articulated the board's position, and that both she and the board would hold firm on the position the board set out. There's no doubt about that. That has been delivered.
Mr. Booth. First of all, I want to say I concur with Mr. Weishauer. I agree with everything you just said. Again, I'm not going to belabor the point, but we have that process, we have that policy, and I know we're gonna continue to negotiate in good faith. I hope they do as well. But I hope that folks who are not participating in Tier 1 realize that there's at least one and possibly 2 more coming on board, and we'll be more than happy to work with them and drive our employees and the folks that we cover here, that the taxpayers of Osceola County cover for insurance. They'll have plenty of places to go. I just wanted to say, actually, because we were on the topic, I should have brought this up front in positive comments, and I apologize. I wanted to thank Orlando Health. They invited me out to St. Cloud High School, to feed the staff. Their lunch, they had been to Harmony. I wasn't able to join them at Harmony for breakfast, but they served the staff at Harmony breakfast and then served the staff at St. Cloud lunch, and it's Chick-fil-A. Everybody loves Chick-fil-A. Of course, what I always have to say is that being a beef producer is I love their leadership and their policies as a company. I love their owner and what he stands for. But as far as eating more chicken, I'd rather you be eating more beef. But thank you to Chick-fil-A and thank you to Orlando Health.
Yeah, that Chick-fil-A sandwich is good.
My kids love it. Eat more beef is all I have to say.
Amen. Let's do the pledge again.
I'm done, Mr. Chairman.
Very well, Mr. Dr. Well, before I go up, Ms. Castillo, just checking the connection, not you. Good?
No, I'm good.
All right.
I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Alright, so Dr. Pace, that was your update, yes?
Yes, sir.
So this brings us to the update on the track and field maintenance.
Mr. Shatera is going to report back to you the research that he's done and a proposal that we have for the board to think about as we move forward to address the concerns that have been brought forward.
Good afternoon, Randy. What are you
How are you all this evening?
doing?
So, after the last meeting, started doing a little research. Mr. Cavany and I visited every field together and every track, including baseball and softball. And I did a little research with some gentlemen that are turf specialists out of Tifton, Georgia. Just happened to know somebody who happens to know them. So that worked out a lot. So we wanted to talk to you to present, and we have given you this page right here you have in your packet. We found, excuse me?
What's that look like? Oh, okay, got it.
Got it? Okay. We found the team, the turf team, which consists of 6 workers and 2 supervisor type people. They're doing a good job. They're mowing 3 times a week when the weather allows, which is what's recommended. We also took the time to go and meet with the gentleman from Austin Tyndall. His name is Jeff Kinsley, and he gave us a lot of information as well. He has also visited our fields previously. We found that most of the fields are heavily filled with weeds, and we can't seem to combat that. Mr. Thacker's request was to take a look at Osceola High School, their football field, to see if they needed to be refurbished, stripped, and replace the turf. And along with that, there are some other things that you should do. It just depends on each field, the shape that you find it in. That might include laser grading, that might include upgrading the sprinkler system, maybe just replacing the sprinkler heads. We found from Mr. Kinsley, he recommended to us that we do 1 field a year, strip it completely, which is what he does at Austin Tyndall. And he has 3 times the team we have. So we did some research, and in front of you, you have our suggestion to add 2 turf specialists. That would allow us 2 4-person teams across the district. We also need 3 pieces of equipment. We have a small aerator. It will not do the job we need. One of the big things we learned was a lot of aeration is important to get the nutrients and the water down into the field. Help with some drainage issues we have. We have a few fields that are wet, not just because of our heavy rain right now, but they are consistently wet. We have some fields that are in good shape. I will shout out to the coach, I think his name's Ubar, that maintains the girls softball field at St. Cloud High School. He does a lot of work there. The girls do a lot of hand weed pulling as part of his coaching. It is in pristine condition. The football field there is in pretty good condition. Gateway's football field is in pretty good condition as well. The others, we have a weed issue and some water issues, drainage issues. So we would need to buy 3 pieces of equipment, an aerator, a deeper aerator, a vacuum. The vacuum goes along with the dethatcher. Dethatching is important to get the dead grass off. The last thing is also, we are just a rough estimate of about $150,000 each year to resod or rejuvenate a field. Now, based on what we've seen, we're likely to have to resod several fields. And if we go with Mr. Kinsley's idea and the gentleman that I've talked to from Tifton, Georgia, once every 10 years, stripping the sod, replacing it. That is an expensive venture. Point Santa High School, as you know, we are doing that now. We have, in fact, they've stripped it. They have a couple more things to do to it. They've done a lot of drainage work there that wouldn't necessarily be required at every field that we take a look at. We're going to have to assess each one individually. I have one of the gentlemen from Tifton meeting me at OHS on Friday as a favor to just kind of give me his expert opinion. But we would do a cyclical order. We're guessing about $150,000. Could be more, could be less. And Dr. Pace suggested that would come from the quarter penny sales tax for the time being that it is in effect. And we have, through Mr. Cavany and I, we also met with Ryan Adams and Dr. Pace, and we're suggesting we start off with football fields And presently, we're doing Poinciana High School. The next would be taking a look at Osceola High School. And then as you can see down the list, if we're doing, obviously, we don't have to do Celebration, it's artificial turf. Then in about 2027, if we're only doing one field a year, that would be when we could actually start on the baseball and softball fields. Unless we get lucky and something's really cheap and maybe we can get two in. Any questions?
Board? Mr. Thacker?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, let me recognize Ms. Castillo first. Yes, proceed, Ms. Castillo. You have the floor, Terry.
Okay, is everything I can go? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yes, Terry. If you can hear you.
He's on delay.
Sorry, I couldn't hear anything you were saying. I apologize if I'm going over someone else. I just wanted to confirm that the items that, the board is looking at is what Ms. Tanya sent us this morning?
Yes.
Via
Yes, it
email, I
is.
just want to make sure I'm looking at the same thing.
Yes, you are.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Thacker?
Just one question. It's really based on the timing of these things. We're doing the Poinciana right now. We had talked about OHS being done before next football season. Is that what you call the 21-22, or are you looking at doing it this season and play another season?
We would probably have to play a season and do it after the season's over.
After this year is over?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm fine with it. I don't want to do two more seasons. Okay.
No, sir.
The other question I have is, I've talked to some people too about this, and I know one thing that's pretty important for these are I think they're the reel masters.
Yes, sir. We did include a list of the present inventory of equipment that we
These are
have.
18 years old. I can tell you, it doesn't do any good to have a mower that's lopsided. It's not cutting even. And kudos to the school district if they can get a lawnmower the last 18 years and still be in good shape, because I don't believe it. So I think you should maybe take a look at those and see if they're indeed good enough or if they need to be in that equipment list.
Absolutely, sir.
We put all this money into grass. If we go through and scalp every 8 feet or 6 feet of it, we're gonna be replacing it quicker.
Equipment's important, staff's important. I will say that Austin Tyndall has 100 acres that they maintain. We have 3 times that we maintain. They have 11 full-time people, 6 part-time people, plus they have 2, a groundskeeper and a head man.
And I'd be interested, you could even ask Jeff at Austin Tyndall what he thinks about those mowers being that age.
Oh, I already know what he thinks. He's visited them.
So if that's the case, I think I just don't wanna spend the money and then not take care of it.
We just couldn't. It would
One of
be.
the terms I've heard over and over is you grow this turf an inch at a time and you kill it a foot at a time. So-
Yes, sir, and I've learned this past month that it is farming Bermuda grass.
You're right. Dr. Pace, I believe you have.
Yeah, if I may just add, and I wanna thank Mr. Shatera and Mr. Cavaney and the team for really taking a hold of this after the comments at our last board meeting and doing pretty extensive research in just a short period of time to learn as much as you ever wanted to know about turf management.
No, got a nice packet here. It tells me all about grass.
The idea
Made some new friends in Tifton.
The idea between adding the 2 people is that we would then be able to have 2 4-person teams. So there would be one on the east and one of the west to be able to really spend some time on those fields each week, getting that 3 times a week mowing in. The additional equipment obviously is a need. Some of that could come out of, the budget, but it's important for everybody to remember, this basically puts us into a cyclical cycle, just like we've learned that we needed to do for gym floors and tracks. And the reason why we're suggesting the quarter penny is that we already have dedicated athletic monies toward athletics from that quarter penny, so it's in keeping with the commitment that we had already made to the community and the taxpayers when that original quarter penny was sought. Just as a reminder, however, it does sunset in 2025. It's not something that the school board can initiate on its own. That is something that the county has to initiate and then agree to share with the 2 cities and the school board. So that's something that we're gonna need to continue to consider and evaluate. But I think this would address some of the board's questions and concerns over the last couple of years about how we're maintaining our athletic fields and athletic facilities. It's been a priority of the board. It just isn't cheap.
Thank you. Just to clarify, Randy, to follow up on Mr. Thacker's question, the Osceola High School football field would be done at the end of this season during spring, summer, so that next year, when school starts, they have a ready-to-go field.
Yes, sir.
Second thing would be that, if I understand this correctly, this will ensure the best way possible that we avoid the large expenses that we've incurred at now Celebration at Poinciana High School by getting ahead of this as opposed to reacting afterwards, correct?
Correct.
Not necessarily, because we would need to explore drainage at each of these sites. So we're not saying that's off the table.
Right.
I do know that we believe Osceola drains pretty well, St. Cloud drains pretty well. There's a couple others that are wet, and I do have some details if you want me to share.
Sure, and I appreciate that, because that is a point of distinction that's worth noting. I think my thought process, and I know why you said yes, because I think we're thinking similar here, is that what this really is this is a risk mitigation and cost mitigation approach for our long-term larger expenses for turf replacement and major overhauls at high school athletic facilities by getting ahead of it as opposed to letting it compound on us and then trying to fix this after the fact. Poinciana High School is a great example of that. I recognize that there still may be drainage things that need to be dealt with at any one of these schools, and I'd imagine that beyond what's laid out here, as we're going into that cycle, we would be looking at, let's say, Liberty, because it's third on the list, and saying, okay, is there a drainage issue? When we're scraping that, do we have in our capital budget an opportunity to fix that, get ahead of it, and avoid another problem 5-10 years down the road?
Yes, sir. And the aerator is a deep core aerator, so hopefully that will help with some of those drainage issues. Spoke to Mr. Clinch today. He cautioned me not to let you believe that $150,000 will cover all the possible problems we might encounter.
That's fair to note. The third comment I would make is, Dr. Pace, I may need a little bit of pushback here if it's appropriate. I don't know that I'm comfortable with this coming out of the quarter-cent sales tax. I recognize, and I think it's important for the community to recognize, that when we talk about our capital funds, whether it comes out of the quarter-cent sales tax, the half-cent sales tax, or our other tax collections that we have for capital purposes, there's similarity and overlap in that, because in some ways it is a bucket of funds to be used for capital creation or repurposing or otherwise. But maybe even offline, I guess, unless we're taking action on this tonight, I'd maybe want to understand, because with the quarter-cent sales tax, obviously none of us were on the board when that passed. What was the true commitment and expectation to the community? Personally, I would not be favorable to the idea of the community saying, hey, we didn't approve this quarter-cent sales tax, we'd use it for this, we'd rather it be used for this. We know internally how it really works, but from a perception standpoint, especially in line with the positive comments regarding our audit on the other sales tax referendum, I don't want to do anything that would in any way jeopardize our integrity or how we manage or utilize those funds.
Absolutely, and I certainly understand that's a very valid point, Mr. Weissayer. I was not a district office employee at the time that the quarter penny was rolled out. Instead, I was a high school principal. And so I know firsthand that a part of that discussion was that then $10,000 each year would be designated for athletic maintenance and upgrades at each high school. That amount is now up to $15,000. So that's the only reason for us saying that that would be a valid expenditure out of those funds, but that's something that we certainly can talk about. What we need tonight is conceptually consensus from the board that this is the direction that you want us to go, because each of these projects would then come back as a part of either our cyclical maintenance budget or as a larger project if that needed to happen for the board, but that we would have this as our plan, just like we do with our gym floors and our tracks.
Thank you. So the follow-up for that would be recognizing that that is indeed or may indeed be in the case with regard to the quarter-cent approval by the taxpayers and the using the 10,000, 15,000 number. I would want personally, and I think collectively, to see that that isn't already being utilized in another area for the exact same intent or purpose, because if we said that's what it was, then We can
certainly
change,
go
this
back
board
and-
has the authority to change, I recognize that, but I wanna understand it. The second thing, and this is the last, it's not second, it's second on this point, fifth on the overall, is I think what's really important for everybody to hear and understand, and I don't mean the board, is that where some may look at these type of things and not understand, like, why would we spend money on this, why would we spend money on that? We're spending money on these things anyway. It's just the way to get ahead of it to ensure we're not spending more money on it in the long run by delaying what needs to take place today and inheriting a problem tomorrow. So when I look at this as a board member, I look at it as an overall cost savings in the long run for the district and positioning ourselves better to manage this aspect of what we do. And that's a very important thing, I think, for the community at large to understand. This isn't just spending more money to spend more money. This is about spending money in the right place to save money in the long run in other places, which all comes back to benefit the community. Thank you.
Can I, Mr.
You wanna go
Booth?
back to- yeah,
No, go to Mr. Booth.
If I-
Go to Mr.
Let me go back to Mr. Thacker because he initiated
It's up to
it.
him, yeah, it's fine.
Clarence?
Just one other thing on the age of some of this equipment, coming from a person who drives old vehicles. So I know what maintenance is on these things, but when you look and we see we have a 1995 Chevrolet one-ton truck in here, I'd be questionable how much we're having to spend on a truck that's used every day hauling equipment and trailers, that's 25 years old.
But it's a Chevy.
Huh?
It's a Chevy.
I haven't.
American made.
I haven't. It's 10 years newer than that.
Ricky, help me out here, man.
I'm not questioning.
Say the
it.
pledge again?
So I just think you ought to take a little harder look at this if there's if we need to do a little, if we need to do something there.
Well,
The last thing I was gonna say is I talked to Mr. Shatera today and I wanna thank him and Mr. Cavaney for, I know they've done a lot of work because we had a fairly deep conversation and he knew everything I asked and was on top of everything. So I wanna just thank y'all for, I'm sure you know way more about turf now than you ever wanted to know, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Thacker, excuse my little Chevy thing. Mr. Booth?
First of all, thank you both. I appreciate all the hard work. It's Mr. Hubre, or Coach Hubre, that's how you
Thank you.
say it. He's a fantastic coach. And on that point, I just wanted to make sure, and I've said this a bunch, and I'm gonna say it until November 14th, which is my last day, and I might say it again because my kids are in athletics at Harmony High School. I still believe that this district needs to encourage athletic directors, coaches, and booster clubs to help with fields and field maintenance. I think if we continue to discourage that, we're gonna end up in a position where we're replacing more things when there are athletic directors out there. I know one personally, I know several of them personally, but there are athletic directors out there who want to do more work than they are technically allowed to do. We don't need to get in a deep discussion about that here, but I want to encourage that work to be able to be done. One question I do have, Poinciana High School, I got some reports that the drain tiling or a drain culvert or some sort is very close to the end of the end zone there. Is that correct?
There are 4 drains, one at each corner of the end zone. They are out of the field of play. And I did send Dr. Pace some information today that I talked to Mr. Clinch, just waiting on her to agree that we would add a little more cost. Well, it's actually not adding cost. We already had the project. There is money left to make a correction so that we can lift those drains a little bit so that when I run out for that exaggerated pass pattern, I'm not stepping off into a hole.
That would be.
They've been there since the field was built, and Mr. Clinch and I talked again today.
I think we've talked about them here before.
There are those 4 and a little bit of a sock drain in that area as well.
Do the Austin Tyndall folks, are they willing to help maybe train some of our employees and do some of the work, especially with, we're gonna have 8 people now? Are they willing to take some time and maybe?
They actually Jeff Kinsley is willing to talk, and he actually has a relationship with Greg, our turf manager. So they've worked together, and he's willing to come and do some other things. Some of these other companies I've talked to from Tifton are willing to come do various services for us as well. Mr. Kinsley at Toho is actually maintaining Toho's field pretty much. All he asked for is the money to buy the chemicals and whatnot.
And
He's taking care of that pretty much on his own time.
what is the mower that we use the most on the football fields and on the turf field? Is it the rotary motors?
Yeah, we use
And
rotary.
those are like the $40,000 mower.
Toro, yes.
And we've got a 13-year-old one and a 12-year-old one that we use essentially every day.
Yes, sir, absolutely, every day. When we took over turf from a lot of the schools, we just took in their equipment that they had.
Okay.
Obviously, we had to do a lot of maintenance to bring that equipment up to usable condition, and so far that's gone well. They are working. We use those rotaries day in, day out. They actually have a better cut than the real mowers that you see on the list there.
So
When it comes to the type of grass we have.
yeah, that's my only pause here tonight, is that we're gonna create a plan, we're gonna spend some money on some other equipment, we're gonna hire 2 more people. I agree with all of that. My only pause here is, and then we're gonna be mowing it with a 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old mower. I really, actually, if it was up to me, would say, identify the one that we use the most, that's the best, and get it upgraded in a new one. I would even be actually board willing to say tonight that that's what I would feel that we should do. Other than that, I want to, the last thing is, Mr. Chairman, I apologize. So we've got this plan for the football fields, and they're used the most, but what is the new board gonna say when Osceola's baseball field just goes completely out? Or is that gonna be part of the plan? Like, we're not gonna wait till 2020, we're not gonna say, well, it's not on the list until 2027, I'm sorry. So what is the contingency plan for some of these situations?
Well, what we could do is we have some of these people from Tifton coming to visit. So if they can give us some ideas, we can hire them to do certain things, maybe to help us rejuvenate those fields. Again, it's all about money, mowers, all of this, but George Coffey said to me.
What it's also about is throwing good money after bad projects.
Yes, sir.
And so, I didn't even notice the 1995 truck.
Remember though, we do have a white fleet policy, and we
I know
are
upgrading.
upgrading.
But I just have to believe, because look, I have a 10-year-old lawnmower at my house that I use once a week in the summertime and then never in the wintertime. And it's a piece of junk. And it's actually a very high quality mower. But I spend $600 fixing it, or I spend $100 here, $100 there. And so, and the new ones are a lot better. I just don't want to spend all this money on all this equipment and then mow it with a 12, 13-year-old rotary mower.
We will certainly
I'm done.
assess
Yeah,
the
sorry.
equipment as well, board members, and we have, our supplemental maintenance fund, we have some monies in our discretionary budgets for operational kinds of expenses. We'll make sure that we are taking good care of whatever we decide to bring back as a project.
Mr. Booth,
I'm giving you a hard time.
Listen,
I'm done.
Like most people, I love talking about grass, but gotta move on. As opposed to turf. Ms. Castillo, anything before I move on?
I have nothing further. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Very well. So that now brings us to back to school update.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Soto, members of the board. Just really briefly for our back to school update, I know that we've had quite a bit of conversation tonight. As you know, we started our pool testing process last Monday. We have since, at the end of the day yesterday, had tested 689 students and staff members at 12 different locations. As you know, we started on the east and also on the west, and we're coming back in. And right now, we've only had 2 positive results. We do still have 78 results outstanding as of late afternoon today. But Applied Ingenuity has been super about getting us that 24 to 36 hour response time. We've had really positive responses, it's gone efficiently and effectively, so I feel like we're moving in the right direction there, and it's one more option. We also do always have the option, if we have a symptomatic staff member, that we can also send them for testing through this lab as well. And then finally, I'm still double checking final numbers for our digital and face-to-face instruction students. You know, last Friday, we kind of set a hard time for parents to make those decisions because we needed to stabilize our schedules before FTE window. But as of today, our average daily attendance for week 5 is 89% for our digital students and 92% for our face-to-face students. So we know we can do better there, but you know, that's kind of where we are as we get ready to stabilize schedules and prepare for FTE. I will tell you that some of the schools I'm visiting have seen quite a large influx of schools returning for face-to-face instruction. Westside K-8 today, I've reported being at about 70% of their students who are now face-to-face every day. Harmony Community is at like 83%. Harmony High School, I believe, is at 75%. Harmony Middle is still at about 50-50. So it really varies from school to school, but we're continuing to monitor that situation and support both digital and face-to-face instruction as best we can. So that's really all I have unless you have other questions.
Board,
No, I've talked to my,
Ms. Castillo?
said my piece.
I don't have any questions, just Dr. Page, with the, I don't know if this is the right place to ask. Students who have been quarantined close to FSA, I think FSA is starting, or has already started this week, is that correct?
FSA retakes or tests left over for our graduating folks have been ongoing for the last couple of weeks. We have some digital learners who are coming in to complete those EOCs or FSA retakes. We are not permitted to administer that in the digital environment, but there is a pretty large window, and then we will have the opportunity to test again. So any student who's currently in quarantine can take those tests in December.
Okay, perfect. So there will be additional dates that students are currently in quarantine and are not able to take the test right now.
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect, thank you.
All right. So this takes us to the new business. I'm going to begin with Mr. Weissier, and then I'll call on you, Ms. Castillo. Tim, you have the floor.
Thank you, Board. As you know, we had a prior conversation about the executive policy group for Osceola County and the structure with that. We kind of just put it out there that we wanted to visit it, but then really didn't do anything with it. We know that there is desire from other government agencies within the county to also address that. What I didn't want is for this conversation to just sit and grow stale, but instead for us to take a proactive approach to convening intergovernmental meeting possibly, and or tasking the respective chairs and executives of the respective agencies in the county to get together and look at what that restructuring would look like. As you know, in somewhat typical fashion, it has been somewhat okay when we're dealing with, tropical storm threats, hurricanes, things like that. Although admittedly, I still think that there's a restructure that's needed. I think what's really brought it to the surface is that we found ourselves in the midst of a pandemic, and for the first time in any of our history, I believe, the structure of the EPG was tested and stressed in ways that revealed opportunities for a rework of it. I'm looking for a little bit of board discussion on this. It doesn't have to happen tonight. If the board's not prepared for it, I'm okay. But I would like us to move quicker rather than later to advance discussion surrounding what this process would look like. At a very high level, I would just throw out just for thought, not that it is the solution, but that in the future the EPG would be made up of the mayor of each city, the city manager of each city, the school board chair and the superintendent, and then the chair of the county commission and the county manager. And then there may even be opportunity for a couple of ex officio members for subject matter expertise, including our emergency management director, of course, who would need to be a part of that just by way that this whole thing is structured. I'm gonna yield because council's going nuts over there trying to get my attention.
I'll tell you that Dr. Pace couple of months ago, and I spoke to the county attorney about it and the city attorneys. The attorneys for the cities, we all agree, needs to be changed. One of the concepts, just for you to think about, that Dr. Pace brought up, and I can tell you, I agreed with legally, was the EPG should really be the elected officials setting the policy. And then there should be an operational committee of the managers and the superintendent implementing it. Now, they coordinate, obviously, but there are two very distinct roles as it relates to that. So I offer that, spoke to the county attorney, and their office said that everybody knew they needed to be addressed, but really wanted to get beyond the election and everything. So I'm sharing with you, it's out there, but I think if it's not teed up, it'll stay out there.
I agree, and just for the benefit of the board, and I see your comment, you know, personally, I don't really care if I'm sitting here when this decision is made or not. I have complete confidence in Mr. Arguello and his leadership to pick up any viewpoints that this board may take in the future. At the same time, I don't think something like this requires waiting on the reseating of new boards in the respective agencies. You're gonna be an interesting one because you're just a board flip. Until you.
Well, I still got election.
Tim, if I could just go ahead and circle a little something, it'll make the rest of this discussion, if there's any, a lot more clear. I'm going to imagine or assume that the reason that we're talking about, an EPG restructuring would have to do with something that happened in the way that this COVID crisis has been handled. Can you at least elaborate and tell us a little bit about what your experience was with that led to this, to this kind of approach?
Sure. In fact, it's actually less reactionary to any one thing that happened and more higher level when you start to really look at the structure and the way that it's laid out and who actually is setting. I think the attorney's comments were good comments. When you look at who's really setting policy, it's not the elected officials from the respective four main agencies in the county. The structure lends to having staff having a lot of influence over policy decisions that are made, whereby the elected officials of this community that have been duly appointed to be there are not as much.
But help me
in
understand.
place.
So the premise here is that an elected official would be in a better capacity to make these evaluations that you say that needs to guide staff and not the other way around.
Yes, I can agree.
Okay, all right. Who was next? I believe it was Mr. Booth. Mr. Booth, I'm calling you.
Yeah, sure, go ahead. I'll try to be brief.
Be brief this time. You used up all your time with the grass.
Come on. No, I would agree with Mr. Wesser, and I would say that I think that's exactly what happened. We saw a situation where, first of all, I think there needs to be some more transparency there. When there can be, I understand there's situations in emergency management operations where there has to be some confidential things that happen. But certainly, I think the whole process needs to be more transparent. And second, he's exactly right. The elected officials need to be making the decisions, and the elected officials or appointed managers or superintendent don't need to be able to be outvoted by other staff members just simply because they're on the EPG. And I think that's the discussion that we need to have.
Mr. Thacker yielded his position to you, Dr. Pace.
Perhaps it might help just for clarity, particularly for the community, to reference the actual makeup of the executive policy group. Because as it currently stands, the superintendent is a voting member of the executive policy group. The city mayor from the city of Kissimmee, the city mayor from the city of St. Cloud are voting members. The sheriff is a voting member. The commissioner of the county commission chair is a member. The county manager is a voting member. The public works director is a voting member.
And then 5.
And I think the fire person. But basically, there are 3 of us that are from the other entities who have a vote, and then 5 people who are all elected, appointed, or in their position because of their role with the county. So that is what kind of created the imbalance in this particular situation that made it very, very difficult to move forward. And there are two specific functions in that executive policy group. It is the policies piece of it, and there is the operational piece of it. But also the way the current guidelines read, as the operational representative of the board, also in this case, as a voting member on that particular group, there's almost a conflict of interest, particularly because we've never really determined where the sunshine law fits into that. If I'm having regular conversations, for example, with the county manager or the two city managers about things that the executive policy group is discussing, and yet for us to do our jobs in an emergency, those conversations are absolutely critical. So I think something like Mr. Weissayer recommended, where everybody has two votes, would potentially be helpful, and you had both the policy arm and the operational arm of all four entities represented, or perhaps two functions. It's just very, very important that we don't confuse policymaking and operational decision-making in the event of an emergency.
Let me ask you another.
One of the things that this board has always been very supportive of is my role in the operational leadership in an emergency. And that makes my job in that situation incredibly easier.
I gotta move this along, Dr. Page.
Sorry.
I have a question, I know, it's just sometimes the answers is roll on. But I need to go ahead and get focused on something here, which is the proposal to restructure. Before I go on, when was the last time that the EPG has ever been, examined for, its structure? Or at least since when have we had the current structure?
Since before I became the superintendent.
Alright, so well, that's not a long time.
As far as I know, and I think we would all say the same, we don't know if there's been a restructure at any point, and if there was, it predates any of us really paying attention to what that was or serving in our respective roles.
Alright, thank you, Mr. Weissayer.
I don't have anything else to add.
Alright, Ms. Castillo? You wanna be heard on the topic?
Yeah, I'm following the conversation. I don't have anything further to say, thank you.
Alright, so here's what it sounds like. And I think in principle what Mr. Weissayer proposes, it sounds like, to me at least, I don't know, I'll just put in mind, sounds like this is a direction that we should definitely be headed towards. Times change, we learn a lot more, we figure out which processes will help better. And I think that putting the ultimate responsibility on the folks, on the people through their elected officials is probably where Mr. Weissayer was heading in. And I think that's what Mr. Booth also acknowledged that. I absolutely, prior to the discussion, I didn't have a lot of understanding as to how those things worked. I relied on the superintendent representing us and communicating with us individually in order to be able to provide the guidance to the EPG from the school district's perspective.
Which you
It's
should
worked,
have
and
never
it worked,
working.
and it's worked well, as Mr. Booth has just also commented with how we handled a couple of hurricanes that came around in recent years. However, I guess that with this latest crisis, unlike the hurricane, there was a lot more of a social component that came in, that I think precipitated us questioning. And specifically, I believe, the whole deal with the mask mandates and things like that. To the superintendent's comment, sometimes decisions that need to be made quickly in order for us to secure and how we serve our community. So I think that, this is an opportunity for us to improve on those systems. It should be explored. Those are my 2 cents, so that's how I feel as the current school board member. I concur with Mr. Weissayer. Any final comments?
Yeah, last comment would be, you touched on this, the representation and accountability to the community, first and foremost falls to the elected officials that are duly serving in those roles. And an opportunity for, I won't opine on any other government agency, but for this board to look at is, as that process begins to come together and assuming a restructure of the EPG manifests itself, would be what that process looks like by way of dialogue, report back, and communication with the board. Meaning that if, I'll just use you because you are the chair, if you were the board chair sitting on the EPG, you would be setting policy on behalf of this board, and yet we'd have to make sure that without muddying up the process too much, because there needs to be a degree of nimbleness and decisiveness in this process, that you or I or any board member is still in concert with their board and actually not stepping outside of the role of what the rest of the board would desire. And I'm only using you as chair because you are chair of this.
But that's an interesting point, because at its current structure, having the superintendent, that's actually the quickest way to have, you know, the board direction be heard at the EPG as opposed to a board member, because she has the luxury of being able to communicate with us and gather all the information she needs to take direction without having to convene a public school board meeting or a special session to discuss that, so that the board chair knows how the board as a unit wants to move forward. And in times of emergency, those opportunities may not be available. So that's why I understand a little bit of how the structure is currently. However, you know, your concerns about, you know, whether or not, you know, like you said, the buck stops with the elected official, and whether that's being carried out, are also valid. So I think that it may end up that the EPG at the end ends up with the superintendent still being the representative, but it's still worthwhile to look at to see if there's other alternatives which will give us a better voice or better input into the process.
Just for the record, I have a problem with the school board being the only body that doesn't have an elected representative.
And that's another issue.
Yeah. So just so you know, I hear your point. I'm not, by no means am I advocating to keep it where it is, and I'm not saying that the school board representative, not the superintendent, which I think should be there and has an operational knowledge and expertise that is absolutely needed in these discussions. I'm not saying that whoever the school board representative, in this case to the EPG, would have to be able to get a consensus from the board in order to take action. I'm thinking more in terms of post those decisions, there has to be a report back function in a public meeting to the school board in this context to be able to say, hey, just so you know, these are the things that I advocated for. I'm there on behalf of the board. We know that no one board member has any more power, authority, or influence in theory than anyone else. And so really it's about making sure there's a true checks and balance. The fortunate thing for us is that the five of us get along really well, trust each other exceptionally, and there's not this lack of trust that exists. We've got to set policy based on all scenarios going forward.
Absolutely. All right, so
Mr. Chairman, can I make a recommendation, because Dr. Pace and I have talked about this for Mr. Weisher and members of the board. What I would suggest to advance this and give it some direction, since I've heard a lot of talk among the cities on this, et cetera, could we bring back to you in writing what, based upon Dr. Pace's experience, she thinks would be the most efficient restructuring? And if you like that, I would suggest that be sent to everyone saying, this is a starting point. Because she has truly thought through this issue.
I can imagine the logistics are going to be complex.
And so would that be all right with you all? If we did that?
Yes. So I'm going to go ahead and Tim, if I may, I'll close this issue and give call to Ms. Castillo. You have the floor on your legislative initiatives.
Obviously, it's a little difficult for me to sort of put everything together because of where I'm at, but are we asking for action right now to move forward with a different structure or a suggestion for a different structure for the EPG?
I'll respond to you. So Ms. Castillo, what the board attorney suggested was to start working on a starting point proposal so that he can start getting the ball moving with the other entities and pretty much
Bring
get
it
the
back
ball.
to you first.
Yes, get the ball rolling.
Okay.
So that's all. It's very, very preliminary.
The proposals will be based on Dr. Pace's suggestions, is that correct?
That's gonna be the starting point, as I understood this from the board attorney.
Dr. Pace's thoughts and suggestions as ratified by you all.
Yes. You got that? Okay. So Ms. Castillo, the floor is yours. Legislative initiatives.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Board. So as you know, know, I am part of the Florida School Board Association advocacy group, and they are asking that we put forth some suggestions for a legislative platform specifically for the Florida School Board Association. So I know that every one of you is familiar with the process. As a district, we will have our own legislative initiatives, which I know we work on with other governmental agencies. These initiatives would be specific to the Florida School Board Association. They are asking that these initiatives are broader than just our county, and they're asking that we have these suggestions in by October 15th. So I'm asking for your assistance. I'm not sure that we need to hold a workshop in order to have these, although I'm happy to do so, but they are asking for the input from all board members in order for this to be a robust set of initiatives. So that is what I have on the floor. I would be happy to answer any additional questions or start a discussion on some of the things that we might think should be presented to the Florida School Board Association.
Excellent, Ms. Castillo. Let me open it up for discussion from the board. Mr. Thacker? Just whatever you sounds well. Mr. Booth? Mr. Whitesire?
I recognize and applaud Ms. Castillo's what she's doing, and I think she's doing all the right things. I don't know that as we sit here tonight as a board, we may have the right recommendations for statewide policy to offer as recommendations. I recognize the October 15th date, and so what I would probably say is she's done an excellent job of putting it on our radar, that we should give some thought to it, come back together at our first October board meeting and have some discussion around what, if anything, we would submit, and recognize that there is a moving process right now with what the legislature will be looking at and won't be looking at going into the next session, and having a good assessment of that, I think would really help lead and guide our conversation as a board to put forth those recommendations. What I believe, have seen over the years is that sometimes school boards around the state will advance policy that makes a lot of sense to them, their district, their philosophy, or their intent, but it's not something that actually could be effective and actually really affect change. And so what happens, and Mr. Thacker was the chair of legislative last year for us at the statewide level, is that what happens is that if we're not intentional about building that conversation properly, we end up bringing forth things that are short-sighted and not recognizing the ebb and the flow of the legislative process, including the executive branch. So I think Ms. Castillo is doing the perfect job. I think we have to have some thought and conversation and address this at our next meeting.
If I may, would this be something that we could just continue with old business? And we could just, because we have a lot of time here, we're already in a meeting. So we could just put it under old business to continue, and Ms. Castillo, I agree with Mr. Weisire, and I believe the rest of the board, you're taking the point on this, and I really do appreciate it. It's very important that we be involved in this process, and I'm very proud to have you there representing us. Anything further?
I'm good.
Final word, Ms. Castillo?
No final words, thank you.
All right, very well. All right, board, this brings us to, yes, finally, some fun things here. Please present to us our new student representative.
Make sure you introduce yourself. Okay. My name is Yassine Belfket. I am a senior over at Poinciana High School, and I'm really excited to be here. And I've enjoyed hearing everyone's input on stuff. And I just wanted to know what is it exactly that you guys want from me besides just me giving insight towards my perspective, as being a student.
That's what we want.
Exactly what you want.
Your insight.
Correct about your insight.
So tell us about your experience with the sports, and feel comfortable about speaking of what you want to talk about.
I think that the school is doing a great job at enforcing the social distancing and personal protective equipment rules. And you can see that like in classrooms, just I have not once seen a teacher have to like tell a student to put their mask back up, because students understand like what's at stake, and if they're already there, they understand the risk that they are taking, as well as like implementing upon others. So I just wanted to say like I'm really proud of like just the students in general for taking this seriously. It's an urgent matter, and it is like very important to like not only protect themselves but as well as others. I wanted to say like I'm extremely grateful for the consideration that you guys have taken, like for the risk that students are taking by going to school, but still allowing us to have the choice of attending school face to face. Because for students that I know as well as myself, for me, I'm an AVID, and AVID is kind of like a college program to like help students like reach their full potential and like understand what they want, what they need to do in order to like be successful. And for me, it's particularly important because like if I were to have gone digital, I would not have access like to just ask questions to my AVID teacher, my guidance counselor, or my college and career counselor. And in just the few weeks that we have started school, the very beginning of my senior year, I have done like so much work that I have had to rely upon them for. And I don't think it would have been like as quick of a process or like as much of an impactful one if I was to have to like type every single thing or wait for a response on the email rather than going to that person face to face and asking them for guidance, excuse me. And I just think that, excuse me, it kind of slipped my mind.
Good.
Okay, but I think that, as you said, it takes about, as Dr. Pace had mentioned, it takes about like a day to half a day for that test report to come back in. So although that is a risk, along with like the safety precautions we already have put in, such as like I said, personal protective equipment, social distancing, I think that a day and a half along with those is more than enough time to like help minimize whatever risk could be implemented if someone were to test positive. And I think that that is great on our part as students, and of course as the staff's part and teachers for always encouraging and enforcing those rules. Other than that, I'm just greatly appreciative that we have chosen like not to live with fear, but rather with caution, because I think that for a lot of students, also including myself, it would not have been as convenient if we were forced to continue online school.
So I'll go first and Mr. Belfkin, thank you very much. I really appreciate your comments and I enjoy having you here and look forward to our next meeting. So going down the line, Mr. Booth.
Yeah, all I would say is, you know, such great insight from you, because what you just said about your experience at the school echoes about 99% of what I hear in the community. You show up at a school board meeting, or you get on social media, or you turn on Channel 9 or Channel 2 or Channel 6 or Channel 35. I'll name them all by name. You're not going to hear the story that you just told. But when I talk to kids in the community, when I talk to administrators, when I talk to teachers, when I talk to the one that comes to my house every night, when I talk to the 3 kids that come to my house every night, I hear the exact same thing that you say. So I appreciate it coming from you, because I think that validates a lot of the work that we've done on this board and that Dr. Pace has done. So thank you for taking, you know, a minute to say that, because you're really echoing what the community is feeling. That doesn't mean that there's some dissenting voices, but what you just said is what I hear all over the community board.
Very well, thank you, Mr. Booth. Mr. Weissier.
Did you share, and if you did, I apologize, I may have missed it at the beginning, but did you share what your future aspirations are? What is it that you're wanting to do after high school?
A couple of them asked me like before, but I never really like said it while I was giving that little speech or whatever. But I plan to attend either UNF if I plan to go towards the psychology major, as well as sociology in order to become a psychiatrist, because for me, I just love like helping other people with their problems and having to like understand it, and based off of like the circumstances that they've been put in, why they are the way that they are, why they perceive things the way that they do. If I'm leaning more towards the business side, because again, I'm a senior in high school, people change their majors their first 2 years doing general studies in college. If I'm leaning more towards the business side, I would go towards UCF, closer to home, have a great business program. I've toured my junior year before the whole COVID thing, so thank God I got to go there in person, didn't have to do that whole virtual tour. And I think it's a great school. And honestly, it's up to just whatever I'm feeling like, whatever I feel like is going to be best for what I can like contribute to the community.
Sure. And then you probably know this, those two choices don't have to be separate from one another, they could be intertwined. And so you could use some of your interest in sociology and psychology in the business environment as well, or vice versa, in actually opening a practice in that discipline and actually being a business owner that's running a practice, helping and serving people either way. So I applaud you on that. I want to also share with you, I truly appreciate you talking about AVID, the importance of it and difference that it makes. This board in this district has been very intentional about recognizing the importance of AVID and the positive impact it has in the lives and the outcomes of students. And then I want to just end by saying this entire board is proud of you. And we are glad that you're here and we support you. And I want you to hear from me personally that what you may need or what you may not even know you need right now, you have my personal, I'll give it to you, my personal connection. You reach out to me, whatever I can do to support you, I'm glad to do that. And I know that's not me. Anybody here would say the exact same thing, including our superintendent. So one of the benefits of us having somebody of your caliber here is to get to hear and understand your viewpoint, but it's also for us to figure out how we can best serve and support you. And then you can bring access to the board to your peers in the school and around the community, because every single person that's sitting in here is here because of you, because we care about the 70,000 kids in this community that are counting on us to support you. So you have our support. You reach out to me anytime for anything.
Ms. Castillo, may I call on you for some feedback from Mr. Yassine Belki? Oh.
No, it's just always great to hear from our students. Welcome, your voice is appreciated and needed, and I'm sorry I couldn't meet you personally today. I hope to meet you personally next time you're in.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Ms. Castillo, and Mr. Thacker.
I just want to welcome you too, and as you can see, some of the stuff we do here is not always the most fascinating topics. I will tell you though, since you are here, I greatly appreciate your comments. And I will tell you, when our students are here, it's my favorite part of the meeting, because it's great to hear your insights. We don't ever know what you're gonna say, where you're gonna come from, what your point of view is. All the students have been different, but I will tell you, they've all been extremely refreshing. And sometimes, especially tonight, when we go through some stuff that's a little bit tedious, it is a great pleasure and anticipation. I wait to hear what the student has to say, and I agree with exactly what Mr. Booth said, that some of your thoughts are some of the things that I've heard from a lot of students. And it's also different than what's in the news and some other places and what we hear here. So I appreciate you being here. I appreciate your thought. You're very articulate. You did a great job. Thank you. And welcome. I'm glad you got two.
Turfgrass management.
That's probably the third one that he's gonna want.
We needed another 30 minutes discussing grass and turf. Sorry,
That's before we finish. Yes, thank you. Just very quick. Dr. Pace, how do we get two of Osceola County's finest with us tonight? We normally only have one.
I don't know, but we're excited to have
Yeah,
them.
sure, okay. No, we don't know the answer. I'll have to ask after the meeting, okay.
Makes me nervous. They knew something we
Yeah, I
didn't
know. I do. When I saw two, I thought something might be going down.
Alright, so, yes, final words for Yassine.
Yeah, just one last little thing. I wanted to say, as well as other students, of course, when hearing about everything that was going on, I was hesitant about going face to face, and I even told my mother, within the first week, possibly 2 weeks, if I didn't feel comfortable, I would switch over to digital. Within the first 3-4 days, man, I just felt safe. I felt comfortable. Not one person was taking off their mask. Not one person was getting too close to one another. And if it wasn't for that, I would have gone digital. I wouldn't have gotten the help that I needed throughout my senior year so far. So I'm just completely grateful for everybody here and all of the students who are being responsible citizens.
You the man.
Thank you. And so board, with that, we close on a very positive note.
Yes.
We're gonna recess this meeting because we have an executive session.
No, we're in, excuse me, Mr. Chair, this meeting is ended, you don't have to, it's only when we go into the litigation ones. So this
Correct,
one ends
corrected.
and then we're going to
So with that, I
executive
adjourn this meeting, everyone
Alright.
have a good evening.
Thank you, young man.
Thank you guys for your